Well, it is time for my annual report on Sunday's paper bag nativity pageant. For those of you who are unfamiliar, we do a no rehearsal, no stress, no mistakes nativity pageant here on the Sunday before Christmas Eve every year. We line the aisles of the sanctuary with costumes in brown paper grocery bags, and people pull one out and put it on and join the story as it's being told. Or even better, kids rewear their favorite Halloween costumes, or they just dress up however they want, because as we like to say, all are welcome at our stable. There were some special visitors to Bethlehem this year. We had two wizards who closely resembled Harry Potter. We had a tiger. We had a very fancy princess. We had a very orange pumpkin, and we even had a small Taylor Swift. Santa Claus was there briefly, but Joseph had come down with a fever and couldn't make the trip to Bethlehem. So Santa very gamely switched stories and costumes and filled in as Joseph. But Mr. Claus had brought along Mrs. Claus and Rudolph, so they came to Bethlehem too. Mary and Joseph had two utterly adorable little donkeys this year who came right into the stable without waiting for an invitation from the innkeeper. They knew where they belonged. They were lifted onto stools and they watched over the proceedings with great seriousness. And I felt like we were in very good hands, or very good hooves, I should say. We had a large chorus of angels. We had 7 wise people bearing gifts for the baby, but we had very few shepherds and sheep and no camels at all. I realized afterwards it was because we had recycled most of the sheep costumes because the cotton balls had gotten all crushed and mangy. And we had also thrown out the ancient camel costumes, but then we forgot to make more. I can't speak for the shepherds, though. I don't know what happened. Maybe it just felt like too much to try to shepherd anyone this year. It's a hard year to be a leader, I think. Jesus was a very sweet 5-month-old redhead named Elliot. He rested in Mary's arms calmly the entire time, his eyes fluttering closed by the end. He was probably the most peaceful baby Jesus we've ever had. I did get several urgently whispered requests in the middle of the pageant from kids wanting to be Mary next year. They clearly figured out that I am the asker. So now I have a 3-year-long Mary waiting list. This is a challenge only because I have to actually remember it. Next year's baby Jesus is already spoken for, too. She'll be born in April. So we are unusually prepared. Everything went very smoothly this year. No accidental fires because we have learned to put out all the flames before the pageant begins. No shepherd children racing around with crooks trying to hook each other by the neck. I don't even think there was much crying. But I have to tell you that I love the mess when it happens. I actually love the wailing and the meltdowns because it feels truer to the story somehow. One of my favorite pageant years was when a little one dressed as Bob the Builder, a carpenter colleague of Joseph's, he yelled out in the middle of the pageant with utter misery, "I hate this story." I got it, though, because it's a hard story. It really is. Even though it's usually portrayed as all magical and serene and gauzy and snow-covered, despite the fact that it almost never snows in Palestine. Not that truth is really the issue here, at least not in the sense of historical accuracy. Unlike some other parts of the gospel, there's actually no historical basis for the nativity story at all, and there's certainly no evidence for it. In fact, most biblical scholars believe that the Christmas story was actually a late addition to the earlier versions of the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, that it was added sometime in the 2nd century, in fact, as the church was developing and spreading. And the story was added to give Jesus better credentials, to set him apart right from the beginning by attaching signs and portents and miracles to his birth. But there are other kinds of truths than historical ones. And this story, like most of the stories we tell at this time of year, is full of truth. Mary gives birth in a room full of animals. A long way from home, after walking 90 miles from Nazareth to Bethlehem for a mandatory registration tax imposed by a tyrant Roman occupier who wants more money to fund his armies and build his empire. That is one of the truths of the story. There are always those who will govern by fear and exploitation in order to tighten their grip and expand their empire. And here is another truth of the story. New life comes into the world under the most difficult of circumstances. New life is always happening. Maybe it is all the more amazing when it comes in the hardest places. Tonight, women are going into labor in refugee camps. Women are giving birth in Ukraine, where the war has not ended and where the nights are dark and cold without electricity. Tonight in Bethlehem, which is in Palestine, women are giving birth in the midst of the second winter of the war, in hospitals damaged by bombs, if they can even get to one. In this country, parents wait for the arrival of their babies in crowded motels turned into homeless shelters. There's one a few miles down the road. But Jan Richardson says that the blessings come from the hard places. They come right along the sorrow. They come from the emptiness and the grief. She writes, all I can offer is this blessing that begins here in the gap, here in the hollow, in the hope that tells us this is how a blessing is made, from the broken things we travel with. The baby whose birth we celebrate tonight grew up to live a life that was all about inclusive and unlimited love, especially for the people who his society and culture, much like our own, considered the broken ones, the outcast, the marginalized, the disenfranchised. He saw those people as whole. He taught that power does not have to look like tyranny, and that the way forward, the only way forward, is love. And something in us yearns to be reminded that love like this is possible and that we are capable of it. Something in us yearns to believe, really believe, that the brokenness of the world, of our country, of our own lives, of our hearts, is not the thing that defines us. Something in us yearns to believe that it's the blessings we make from the broken things that matter more. None of us is beyond the reach of love. And it is never too late. It is never too late for new life, for new hope to be born in us. The ending has not yet been written. So choose again to be gentle with yourself and with the imperfect people you love, and with this world as flawed as it is. And let's light candles in the darkness and believe that the ending is love, that another world is not only possible, she's already on her way.